I always had an entrepreneurial spirit and mindset. I was always like selling stuff, and like I was selling, like in 6th grade, I was selling phone cards, like a multi-level marketing phone cards to adults. So somehow, and people were buying them. So somehow I figured that out.
How did that happen?
I don't know. I guess I was very convincing and very passionate about phone cards. But
You were in 6th grade?
I was in 6th grade.
So at some point in 6th grade, I've got a 5th grader right now. He's 11. So you're talking about 12, 13 years old.
Yeah.
You thought to yourself,
Yeah.
you know what? I could make this happen. I get phone cards. People need to buy them. I could sell them. We can make a profit. This could happen.
Yeah, multi-level marketing is all about the vision and, getting rich and the lifestyle. I was like, I want that. So I started hawking phone cards.
Welcome to the Daron Earlewine podcast, where we awaken you to become who you were born to be. Here's your host, Daron Earlewine.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Daron Earlewine podcast. We're here for episode 51, moving right along. Today we're sitting down with Dr. Charles Livingston. You have to say his name like that. You can't say it like regular, just English. You can't just say, hey, Charles Livingston. You can't. You have to give it some kind of British, interesting accent just to make it pop off a little bit. And if I were him, the weird part would be I would struggle to introduce myself and not do that, which would be odd to me. Can you imagine? Just think about every time he has to say his name. Hey, how you doing? My name is Daron. Hey, how you doing? My name is Mr. Dr. Charles Livingston. Anyway, but we're going to sit down with him. He is an entrepreneur extraordinaire, is what I want to call him. He was a chiropractor. Then before you know it, he's selling this ebook. Then all of a sudden he's got a whole fitness thing, and now he's got one of the largest organic coffee companies happening in the whole state of Indiana and in the nation, and just absolute apostolic pioneering genius. The story is going to be a good one. Can't wait for you to listen to it. Thanks for downloading this episode again. And I want to thank you guys for those of you that are sharing the episodes with friends. I had somebody reach out this past week and say, hey, I love this episode, shared it with 3 or 4 of my friends. And I do this podcast every single week, not because I just can't find something better to do with my life, okay? We give quite a bit of time to recording and prepping and editing and putting out the podcast. And I do it in our ministry, Black Permission. We do it because we believe in the content that we're placing out here. We believe in inspiring people to become who they were born to be. And we want that to grow. We want to let that happen for the most amount of people possible. And one of the best ways that grows is by referral, by you saying, hey, listen to this episode with this podcast. I learned this about it. It inspired me. It pushed me forward in this way in my life, and I think you'd enjoy it. So those of you that are sharing episodes with friends, neighbors, maybe a few enemies, we really appreciate it. And I keep asking you guys to reach out. I want to know what's going on and what you're learning. And we got a mailbag for this week. I want to thank listener Kyle, for reaching out this week and just letting me know. I loved it. He starts off, he says, Daron, I wanted to reach out and let you know how much the podcast and the messages are helping me in my continual desire to change. And you don't have to drop everything if you're going to send an email, but you probably need at least 9 of your fingers or 8 of them to type the email. But you can reach out lots of different ways. You can email us. Just email me, Daron, Daron, @blackbirdmission.com. You can also text if you have a question, something going on, just some feedback. 317-550-5070 is the number, or you can reach out all the way through anything on the social medias. You know how to use those. Just search for my name. It was just cool. Kyle goes on and just talks about that God's just teaching him how to be more selfless than selfish, and talking about how the podcast, some of the interviews that we've had recently, has helped him be able to actually apply some of Jesus's teaching about loving others, about loving God and loving others as we love ourselves, and how he's learning and growing in that to become the best version of himself. He says it's getting better, but always a work in progress. So he says to me, keep up the great work. The Lord is speaking to me through you. Thanks, Kyle G. Will you keep up the good work? And thank you for the encouragement and letting us know and letting me know how God is using the podcast to work in your life. All right, listen, let's get down to business here with Dr. Charles Livingston. Charles is an awesome guy, and you're going to hear a story. This guy was raised by his grandparents in Milan, Indiana, which you may have heard of that before if you ever watched the movie Hoosiers, right? He is from a dinky was the word I was trying to use. It is not saying it's smelly. in this town. I'm not saying it's not smelly. I've never been there. I'm just saying it's a dinky, as in small. It's a small town in Indiana. That's where he was raised by his grandparents. And what's interesting about him is he talks about feeling and understanding some of the entrepreneurial, pioneering, apostolic, as we would say in biblical terms, roots of his life from 6th grade on. He talks about early on in life that people would always say, "Oh, Dr. Livingston, I presume," and that he actually believes that people speaking that over his life gave him this desire to be a doctor, which he did become. He's going to tell a story about by 6th grade, he was selling phone cards and making money, running his own little business. By 6th grade, I have a 5th grader right now. I can't even fathom if he was like, "Dad, I'm thinking about selling some phone cards." It'd be awesome if he did because we could use the money. But I'm just saying this was in him from the beginning. And as you listen to this, I want you to think about and begin to ask God, if you haven't already, is what are some of the threads? What are some of the seeds that were planted in you very early? They're a part of your spiritual DNA, right? You have everything you need to live and to serve God already placed in you by the Spirit of God. It's in you. Have you discovered it yet? Because you're going to see that it shows up very early in your life. It did for Charles, and it will for you. And here's one thing I want to leave you with this, and then we're going to get into the interview. Is not only for yourself, but for the people around you. Charles talks in a couple of different places in the podcast about how people spoke positive things into his life, and as he began to notice some of the positives in himself. And I wonder, the people around you, maybe even your kids, if you have kids, how quickly are you noticing their weaknesses before you're noticing their uniqueness? Because it made me think, as I was listening to Charles' podcast, is these people that would say, Dr. Livingston, I presume, and line from a great movie, and that it made him actually begin to believe these great things about himself. And I just wondered, sometimes when we're raising kids, when we're speaking into people's lives, it's so easy to notice their weakness, the things they're not doing well, the things that we wish they would improve on. And do we give more voice to those realities? I'm not saying that people don't have weaknesses. I'm not saying there's not things we need to improve, but do we give more attention and more verbal energy to weakness rather than uniqueness? And I just wonder if we were to make it a goal and say, you know what, over this next week, I'm going to turn my attention to speak to the positive uniqueness I see in my spouse, in my friends, in my parents, in my kids. I'm going to make sure I'm speaking to that more than I'm speaking to weakness, because it's amazing the way that God has actually created our mind, and the way that we receive negative information is that negative feedback and negative comments to us, it's like they stick to us like Velcro. And it's an interesting thing about how the brain works, but positive affirming things that bring gratitude, that bring joy, positive emotions, that's been proven with different brain science that it actually can take up to 10 to 15 seconds of focused attention on kind of receiving the positive feedback for it to actually positively imprint upon our psyche. It's like the negative is like Velcro and the positive is like Teflon. It rolls off. And so in our life, are we speaking to ourselves negatively more about our weakness rather than celebrating our uniqueness? The people in our life that we're influencing, are we noticing the weakness more than the uniqueness? And what would happen if we begin to change that? And I think what you're going to find is if we begin to change that, we're going to begin to raise up, whether they're our kids, our neighbors, our friends, our spouses, raise up people around us that move out to do significant things that God has created them to do, and people that become who God's created them to be, much like you're going to hear right now with Dr. Charles Livingston, entrepreneur extraordinaire. When we come back, we'll talk about his awesome coffee too, probably Life Boost Coffee, the official coffee of the Daron Earlewine podcast. We just don't have the affiliate link set up yet. We'll get to it. Someday, me and you, a bunch of us will sit together and have an amazing smoking hot cup of Life Boost coffee. We'll boost our life right out of the cup. It's going to be a beautiful thing. Just black for me. I don't need that creamer, sugar in my coffee. I just need the black coffee of Life Boost. All right, enough of that business. Let's sit down with Dr. Charles Livingston, see what we can't learn right here, episode 51 of the Daron Earlewine Podcast. Hey, welcome back to the Daron Earlewine Podcast. Excited to sit down today with Dr. Charles Livingston. And Charles, your name literally sounds like you should be like an explorer. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like you should be in Jumanji.
I get that a lot. That, and I get Dr. Livingston, I presume.
Yes.
That's the other one.
That works. That works. Well, you have a very, very interesting, very cool name, and it fits the great story that you've been living with your life. I'm excited for us to walk into it today because it's not every day that you get a chance to talk to someone who can kind of go back through chapters of, well, I did that, and then I did that, and then I did that. You've had an amazing pioneering and entrepreneurial journey, which we're going to learn a lot from today. And so I'm just glad you're sitting at the desk and we can have the conversation.
Oh, I appreciate you having me.
So give us just a little bit of kind of the ins and outs of who you are, family, friends, where you're from, just kind of the basics, and then we'll get into the story a little bit more.
Oh, absolutely. So I am from Milan, Indiana. So if you ever heard of Milan.
Yeah, that's the Hoosiers, right?
That's right, man. You got it. Yeah.
I know my Indiana sports history.
Little podunk town of 1,000 people. I'm pretty sure it's still 1,000 people. Just basketball was everything there.
Yeah.
All my friends played basketball. I started till junior high and realized I was way too short. And they were all basketball studs, and I was not. So I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
So I played soccer and did martial arts and things like that.
Okay.
But yeah, so grew up there, just roaming around the country and just running all over town on my bike. So back when there was no electric anything,
yeah,
it was just you had to pedal everywhere. So I was pedaling 5 miles to my friend's house. So
what'd your parents do?
So my mother owned actually she owned a tea shop she did a few different things. She was like managed a restaurant and was a bartender for a while, and then she owned a tea shop.
Okay.
But that was in Seattle. So I was actually raised by my grandparents.
Okay.
My father was in a bad car accident when I was I believe 4 or 5, something like that, and it left him missing a third of his brain. So my grandparents had to take care of them, and my parents were divorced. And when my mother moved to Seattle, she made the hard decision to leave me in Indiana with my grandparents because otherwise they'd be stuck in an apartment in the inner city versus while she's working and doing her thing versus me just having free reign around a small town Milan where everybody's friendly and everything's safe. And
wow. So that happened when you were 4 or 5 years old?
Yeah.
So were you born in Seattle, you said?
I was born in Fort Polk, Louisiana. My father was in the military.
Okay.
So I was there for, I don't know how long I was there, not very long. And then I went to Indiana from there.
So man, those first 4, 5, 6 years, that's a lot of change. That's a lot of transition, a lot of things to adjust to and try to get your mind around as a kid.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I don't remember a lot of it. I just remember just various memories and images of just going to different babysitters and different houses and, all over the state, back and forth from Indianapolis to Milan. And yeah.
What was the mix with your grandparents? What did they do professionally?
So my grandfather was a carpenter. A handyman carpenter. He built things for a living. My grandmother was a stay-at-home grandma. She worked at the drugstore. Remember that? Or the pharmacy now, I guess.
Yeah.
But back then we called it a drugstore.
Yeah. So was faith a theme at that point in your journey with your family and even yourself? It was.
It's been a huge part of my life. I started going to church 6 years old. I started going to Wesleyan church there, and then as I made friends throughout school, they invited me to go to a Baptist church down there in a little town next to Milan called Elrod, actually. And so I grew up all through high school in a Baptist upbringing.
Okay. So if we were to go back and interview 7, 8, 9-year-old Charles, he's had some trauma, he's had some changes of life and trying to figure things out. He's grown up in a small Indiana town, riding his bike everywhere, living with his grandparents. If we were to say, hey, Charles, listen to the deal. You're going to become a doctor, chiropractor, then you're going to do this and this. And the journey and the adventure that you have lived, would 7, 8, 9-year-old Charles be like, yeah, I could see that in the equation? Or does your current life seem like it's on a different planet from what you would thought as you would have as a kid?
That's a great question, Daron. I would say yes to the doctor, no to owning a business like I have now.
Yeah.
Simply because ever since I was little, people would always say, Dr. Livingston, I presume. Like I literally heard that from like 6 years on.
So you think they kind of spoke that into you?
I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
Wow.
Because by the time I was in 8th grade, I was certain that I was going to become some type of doctor.
Okay.
So then I, did my research and like decided, did some shadowing and decided I liked chiropractic the best.
Yeah.
And that was the way I was going to go. And that's the path I followed all the way through college. Now, with that being said, I always had an entrepreneurial spirit and mindset. I was always like selling stuff, and like I was selling, like in 6th grade, I was selling phone cards, like a multi-level marketing phone cards to adults. So somehow, and people were buying them. So somehow I figured that out.
How did that happen?
I don't know. I guess I was very convincing and very passionate about phone cards. But
You were in
people
6th
buying
grade?
them. I was in 6th grade.
So at some point in 6th grade, I've got a 5th grader right now. He's 11. So you're talking about 12, 13 years old.
Yeah.
You thought to yourself,
Yeah.
you know what? I could make this happen. I get phone cards. People need to buy them. I could sell them. We could make a profit. This could happen.
Yeah, multi-level marketing is all about the vision and, getting rich and the lifestyle. I was like, I want that. So I started hawking phone cards.
That's nuts. Did your grandparents really like totally cool with it? Like, listen, you got your little company, just do it.
Yeah, they didn't care. So they were just, they allowed me to put I think at the time it was a few $100s to buy into the company and to get your starter package or whatever. And then I had a mentor at the time who was like just kind of explaining how things work, and they had their, conference calls or whatever that I'd get on and listen to. And yeah, I mean, I sold, definitely sold some. I made money at it.
Yeah.
So not a ton of money, but
How long did you do it?
Oh, maybe a year and a half, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, that's what's fascinating to me, Charles. When we look back, and I think sometimes people don't maybe take the time to go back, and look at those kind of signpost moments where it's like, oh, they could just kind of slough it off like, I was in 6th grade and I did, I started a company, but it's like there's not a lot of people, right, that started a company, or in that kind of vibe when they're in 6th grade. A lot of people, 6th graders are just like, let's play some video games and whatever else. But you're thinking about building a company, making money, sales. I mean, that's not something obviously it's not like you had a major in 6th grade on, a marketing company. I mean, but you did it. And I think there's parts of that where we really see that God was at work beginning to kind of sow those seeds into you, which I think is fascinating. So you have that very early on in your life. You figure out, you know what, Dr. Livingston, that's going to be the vibe, and you chart that course, and that's where it takes you through college.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was pretty focused, throughout high school and college. I knew I was going to be a chiropractor. I knew the track that I had to do. I just had to do it, right?
Okay.
So the track was laid out, do pre-med, biology, minor. It was biology, minor pre-med. And I went to Franklin College, which is a small liberal arts school outside of, right there next to Whiteland and Franklin and Greenwood. That
South
area.
side of Indy.
South side of Indy.
Okay.
So I went there, had an amazing time, and I was prepared. And, from there, I just went straight to chiropractic school.
Okay. So was there any fork in the road moments or anything during that journey where you questioned it, or you thought about maybe I'm going to do something else, or were you pretty much like, this is working out, I got this going on, this is the plan, here we go?
Yeah, that was it.
Okay.
I was all in. Yeah.
So you go to chiropractic school, you get out, you begin practicing, as a doctor. And what I think is interesting is knowing just a little bit about your story. You didn't stay in that career very long, which I think, you those kind of careers like doctor, lawyer, like you get these, some of the big five or whatever you want to say. Now there's so many, great jobs in different industries, but you get into a job like that where you've had to go to college, you've had to go to a secondary level of school. That's not usually something that, like, I did that for 4 or 5 years, 6 years, and then I thought, let's give something else a shot. So fill in the blanks there. How do you put in all that time? Dr. Livingston, I presume, here we go. This has been spoken into since childhood. But then you realize, you know what? I think there's something else I want to give a shot. Tell us that story.
Yeah. I guess one aspect of that was I always thought I was meant for something bigger and greater, I guess.
Okay.
And off of that, so the reason why I switched, I practiced, so chiropractors are forced to be entrepreneurs and business people.
Okay.
because they don't have the luxury of going out and working into a hospital and just getting a job right out.
Right.
They have to either become an associate or start their own practice.
Okay.
Most will start their own practice, at least then. Now, I don't know how it is because, the debt to loan ratio, I don't know what that is for these guys now. But then, I started my own practice, and you did not get a lot of business training in chiropractic school. They basically, at the time, was like, you build it, they will come. So it's not the case, by the way.
That is a lie. It was a great movie, but that is not the case.
It was. But, from there, I was just, I did take, I did some extra stuff with business, but I still had the mentality of, just become a great chiropractor and adjuster, and, everything else will be fine. So I was like 95% science and maybe 5% any business sense whatsoever.
Okay.
Which is definitely not a good ratio to start your own business.
Sure. Yeah.
So it was a very rocky starting up chiropractic, and I started to, figure it out along the way. But during this time, like my best friend since kindergarten, I've known him since kindergarten. We went to high school, all through high school together, all through college together. Then I went to chiropractic school. He ended up with a computer science degree and started doing things online. And by the time I was out of chiropractic school and $100,000 in debt, he was already a millionaire.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, what did you do? And I knew what he was doing. I mean, he was doing experimenting online. He was one of the grandfathers of search engine optimization, SEO, right?
Yeah.
So he figured out that game early, and he figured out how to basically create programs like software without coding himself. So he had a very small coding background, just enough to understand how to talk to a programmer or a coder, and then he would just literally go out and hire coders. And he ended up building this software that was the grandfather SEO software at the time.
And this is your best friend since kindergarten.
Yeah.
So you're watching this guy explode. You're in the grind. You're trying to figure it out, and all of a sudden he's like, "I don't know. I've got all this money just hanging out. I don't know what to do." Right?
Yeah. I'm like, we would go to the bank, and he'd be. I mean, we're like, how old were we? We were 24, 23, 24 maybe at that time.
Wow.
And we'd be driving. He'd drive me to the bank with him, and he'd be depositing $30,000 checks. And all the tellers would be just giving him the dirtiest looks. And he would look at me and just snicker, and I would start laughing. And I was just like, he was like, yeah, they think I'm 12 for one. Because he does. He looks he looks super young for his age.
Yeah.
He just had that baby face. And,
Yeah.
They would just sneer at him. I can't believe he's making so much money at one time and cashing these giant checks.
I know that some people, and I've used this phrase a ton on the podcast, Charles, is that we suffer with just a deficit of imagination, right? It's not that we can't do something. It's not even that we wouldn't do something. We just haven't really been in an environment we were able to imagine that our life could look like that. Sounds like with that kind of trust you would have with a best friend since kindergarten, that had to do something to begin to expand your imagination for what you could accomplish.
Yeah, no. It's very, because I always try to think about his mindset and how he in life, because this kid he was cheating off of me in high school. I would be filling out, because I was a good student that, I was number 3 in the class or whatever. So I'd be filling out stuff, and I'd see him and I'd just put it over to the side so he could go through it. And,
what's the statute of limitations? I get in trouble for cheating in high school. It's past that, right?
Right. But so he would do that, and we would always snicker and joke about it. And I mean, that continued even into college some.
Yeah.
But, and then we had to, we obviously took different paths in college, but, but he was just an outside of the box thinker. He was creative, and I don't think that he was really held by the limitations in his mind that a lot of people are beholden to.
Say more about that.
Meaning that, from the time you were born, subconsciously, people put things in your mind that kind of limit your thought process and limit your creativity. Oh, no, you're not smart enough to be a doctor. Or, just different things like that. You know, they don't mean anything by it that's detrimental, but it ends up being like a roadblock in your life to being the best person you can possibly be.
Yeah.
So, and for either he knew how to overcome it at an early age, or he just never had that. I never really sat down and talked to him about that. But I mean, he just never had those limitations. Like, his thought process was, they can do it, I can do it too.
Yeah.
So he would see somebody doing like, $10 million in a business. He'd be like, yeah, I can do that. And he's like, I can do it, and I can do it with less people. I mean, that was his mindset, right?
Yeah.
And that's what he would do. And I'm like, dang. I mean, that's like, when I sit back and I think about it, it's like just such, it was such a cool thing to see him respond that way. And then I started to pick up like that. I'm like, you know what? If they can do it, then I can do it. Why should they be able to do something like that when we're all, from God, right? We're created in the image of God.
Right.
So at one level, we're the same. Granted, we have different cards that we're dealt. But, we were just some small kids from, a small town in Indiana.
Yeah.
And if we can figure this stuff out, I think anybody can figure this stuff out, right? But it has to do with mindset.
So you're in 5 years then, you're right, of practicing. You're seeing him really begin to take off. You're thinking, listen, we're not limited. I can step into this. What was the opportunity that began to really move that next first venture for you, as far as that next kind of entrepreneurial step?
Yeah, so like, I was super interested, and with being an entrepreneur by nature, I was just like asking questions. And so I started to, create my own digital, ebook about weight loss. I've got a huge nutrition background. I studied that like crazy, in chiropractic school, after chiropractic school, before chiropractic school. I was always studying nutrition, exercise.
And that was just a passion of yours.
Yeah, it was just like, I really enjoyed it, right? And so I had all this knowledge. So he's like, yeah, dude, just create an ebook about it. And there was a website called ClickBank that was super popular, and this was pre-Kindle, right? Kindle kind of took over the digital book market, right? Okay. So this was before that. And, I was just asking him questions because he was doing really well on there. So I was like starting to figure out myself. And he's like, finally, he was just like, look, dude, why don't you just stop practicing, come with me, I will show you the ropes. You'll make more money, you'll have less stress, and you'll have freedom to work where and when you want. Of course, I'm like, duh.
Yeah.
So at that point, my transition was full-time chiropractor, part-time chiropractor. Finally, I had to burn the ships and go all in. And he started me out, because I knew hardly anything about computers. He started me out in customer service of his software companies. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And he's just like, yeah, you'll figure it out. So here's some stuff to read, and that's how I started. I literally just, from the ground up, I knew nothing about business, marketing. I just started reading and self-educating.
So it wasn't you building everything around your ebook. You were working for him in customer service for his company, and that was just, the ebook stuff was a little bit of a side hustle for you.
Yeah.
I'm guessing, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but that's kind of a humbling step. Like, hello, I'm Dr. Charles Livingston. I have my practice. I'm a doctor. And then, like, on Friday, I'm a doctor. This next Monday, I'm a customer service dude for my buddy's company that we've been friends since kindergarten.
Yeah.
Take me through the emotions of that. I mean, that had to be just, I can't imagine that.
Yeah, it was definitely, I had to think about it for a moment, because that's exactly what it was. But I guess the way I viewed it was like, there was so much greater potential for scale and getting me to where I wanted to be. And I did not like being married to a clinic, because I did it for 5 years. I was stuck there. And it wasn't for the life that I wanted to live that was like holding me back.
Did you kind of feel like a caged in animal there? Like, I got to go to the same place every day. I got to do the same stuff. Like, was the routine part of it that almost killed you in that?
Yeah. It was that. I'm very big on, I like routine to a point, but I also like a lot of variety.
Yeah.
So like now what I do, I can work from anywhere. Like all I need is my laptop.
Yeah.
So everywhere I try, like every pretty much vacation I've ever been on since then has been a workation.
Yeah.
I'm always working or doing some type of work. Granted, it's not the entire time,
Sure.
but it's enough to keep things going in the businesses.
Well, that totally makes sense, Charles, from the understanding of like, I'm guessing, you haven't gone through Spiritual DNA, our online course, but I would bet $100, right, that you're an apostolic pioneer as far as who God's created you to be. And in that apostolic, pioneering type of gifting that God has created within our spiritual DNA, like that is so on point of just, the repetition and the idea of being, I'm going to be in this one chiropractor office doing the same thing every single day. And it's just, it begins to feel like you're, like I said, like a caged animal. Like I've got to have room to roam. You have to be able to create. Yeah. And what I think is, what is great about what you did is I meet a lot of apostolic pioneer type people that have gotten into a good job. Mm-hmm. They're making good money. Mm-hmm. There may be some prestige, in the title. They start a family. They've got a mortgage. They've got responsibilities or whatever. And they either slowly die as far as passion and joy in their life, or they continually cause problems in their current company because they need to start and change and create something out of it. A lot of times you're in a business where it's like, hey, we didn't hire you to create a new company, just do your job. But you didn't getting stuck in that. And were you married at this point?
I was divorced at that point. Yeah.
So you had a little bit of freedom there where you could say maybe this would be an opportunity to try something different. What was it? I guess you said it was kind of the allure and the draw of having that freedom, having the ability to start something, to go after it. So it was that just the kind of the idea of the blue ocean idea and the freedom of it, that was enough to get you to take the leap then?
Yeah. I mean, it's exactly right. And my whole thing is like, God will always take care of me no matter what I do.
Yeah.
So I've always had strong faith.
Yeah.
And so I never worried. I never really looked back and played the what if game. Oh my gosh, if this goes south, what am I going to do? So, I'm like, well, if I have to go back to chiropractic, I can always do that.
Yeah.
Right? And I still keep my license today, like just as a safety net. And the fact that like, if I stop doing my continuing education, then it's a lot harder to get it back than just doing the continuing education.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
there's a lot of wisdom
give
there.
That up. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was just faith. And it's one of those things where there's something I always pray like almost every day. And it came from this poster that my mom got me when the few times that she visited me in Indiana. After that, I always had to go to Seattle. But when we were there, she got me this poster. And I found it, and I keep it in my wallet.
Really?
Yeah. And it's this little thing. Look at that. It says, "Help me to remember, Lord, that nothing is going to happen today that you and I can't handle together."
I love it.
That's like my mantra. I love it.
So it's a little polar bear on it.
Yeah, it's a little polar bear.
Yeah, check that. I don't know if it's going to go in focus or not, but I love it. So this was the poster your mom gave you. You found it and you've got it in your wallet.
Yeah, I found a little card of it at a little bookstore, and I was like, oh my gosh! So I bought a few of these and gave them out to people, and you can tell it's really old. Like every wallet that I've ever had, I just keep transferring it. So
that message was kind of the bedrock of it. Well, listen, we're going to go after this.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. We're walking through this together, Lord. So
I pray it. I still pray it almost every day. Yeah.
It's beautiful. I love it, Charles. So you know that you and the Lord are after this. We're going to try a new adventure. I'm going to humble myself and be the customer service guy as I figure out this new hustle and this new business. Take us from there. Where does it go?
So then, we took my ebook, after I started getting more familiar with things, understanding business and marketing, and, finally figured out the customer service aspect. My buddy partnered with me, and we started to take this ebook, and, it went through a few different iterations. It was I guess a 2-year from that point overnight success. So, through iterations and just testing and figuring out what works and what doesn't, we finally got it to where, people were buying this ebook. And I think that first year we scaled it to, I don't know, 10 million or something.
Wow.
Like it just exploded. And, part of it was just knowing he was very he had some really good gifts that he was able to apply to this. And I created like all the content, was responsible for a lot of, the customer service and building out the entire back end. So we made a good team. Like he was responsible for, customer acquisition and bringing people in. And I was responsible for getting content and getting things to him that he could use to bring people in.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it started. So we grew that. And then what happened, it's ClickBank. Once you get to the top, you've got all these competitors who want to take that top spot. And when you move from number one to like number two, instantly all your sales get cut in half. So it's a fight to stay up there, right? So you always got to stay relevant and keep doing stuff. So we were at some event together, and a guy who was the CEO of a $1 billion company, him and one of his friends met with us for lunch, and they just basically sat us down and said, look, you guys have an offer, you don't have a business, in 6 months you're going to be irrelevant. And so that basically scared the life out of us. So we came back and like discussed what we were going to do, and finally decided we're going to move it into a supplement company.
Okay.
So we took that and we, did what we needed to do and iterated it. And, I was responsible for supply chain and figuring out who to, source supplements from, and formulations. Since my nutrition background, I knew what to look for. And then, based on what our ebook was about, we took that philosophy and premise and created a supplement around it. So we moved into a supplement company, which is a much more viable business.
Yeah.
Right. So with that, we ended up adding another partner who was really good at driving like traffic, which means, Google traffic. At that time it was Google. Facebook wasn't really on the dock yet.
Okay.
So we did a lot of Google traffic and, banner ads and stuff like that, and email marketing. And so we took that, and that business grew to 8 figures in 2 years.
Wow.
So
along the way, what I think is interesting is that, we always encourage people to find those places of passion to begin to run towards, because if you're passionate about something, you'll be willing to suffer for it and do the hard work, do it. Fitness and that side of it was obviously the context of it, which was a passion for you, but it sounds like the business side of it and being able to grow that and have that part of it. Because I would guess if you were just extra crazy passionate about fitness, at some point you'd be like, you know what, I'm going to just go over and specialize and just, kind of just with the, the customers, and I'm just going to help people with their health, and somebody else, you guys do the business stuff, I'm just going to do the health. Now you were doing the content, so you were still in a place of passion, but did you ever waver back and forth of knowing like, man, I'm just going to go back and kind of do it, consultant for the fitness side, or was there ever a tug of war between that and being able to be, front edge of the business growth side of it?
Not really, because the way we designed the business was that we wanted to market to the masses versus one-on-one.
Okay.
Now, like, I would hire coaches and stuff to do one-on-one stuff, so I wouldn't have to do it myself.
Yeah.
Because that once again, like, limits your time, right? So if you want to build and scale a business to 8 figures, you can't do it one-on-one with people. Unless you're charging, a lot of money per time, right? Right. But this ebook was like, at that time I think $47 for the course, the program. So that would take care, and we would answer questions. We'd have like customer service people do that, and so that way, like I was in charge of content, but also I still had time, since I wasn't doing one-on-ones with people, to focus on growth of the business.
Was there ever a point, Charlie, when you're going through this, that it was like, I've talked to people who have gotten into, where they've had great success quickly, and sometimes they struggle, especially if they're a Christian, of like, oh, God, is this too much, or do I deserve this, or is this, is this a bad thing that I'm making this money or whatever? As you're seeing the growth in the business, was that ever a struggle of the faith side of things, or was it like you just knew, hey, God's put me in position and we're going to be able to make an impact from that? Take us there.
That is a great question. And I think that in churches, there is a big spirit of poverty that runs through there, where people don't think that they, for some reason, deserve to be paid, and people will complain when pastors make too much money. And I'm like, do you understand that these guys should be making the most money out of anybody for what they're doing? Like, you got these mega pastors who have like private jets and stuff. And you got to look at so one of the things I talk about is like first, second, third order thinking, right? First order thinking is like, oh my gosh, they have a jet. They're just wasting a bunch of money. But what you don't look at is like the second and third order thinking, which is, why do they have a jet? It's because they need to, in order to complete their mission, they have to like cut as much time, because once you start making money, you use that money to buy back time. And you, like, if you're super famous, or, even pastors that are super famous, people constantly just bombard them, and that's energetically draining.
Sure.
So they need to have quiet time. A lot of times their quiet time is flying from place to place doing their mission.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things underneath it that it's like people, even, I see it all the time, just the judginess that comes attached with, religions. And that's something that, it just has to do with that spirit of poverty, right?
Yeah. Well, I've heard people talk about that a lot, about the difference of, do you believe that God is a God of, a scarcity, or is he a God of abundance?
Oh, it's absolutely a God of abundance.
Yeah.
But you have to be open to that, because if you're going to let that spirit of poverty dampen that, which, why wouldn't? If you think that about God, and he is your father.
Yeah.
As a father, don't you want to give your kids absolutely everything that they want without, obviously making it detrimental.
Right.
Right. So there's also that aspect too.
Yeah.
But he's a good father. He wants you to be successful. He wants you to have all your, reach all your dreams and goals. So if you want that for your kid, why wouldn't, if you're his kid, why wouldn't he want that for you?
Yeah.
Right.
One, I think is a part of it too, is obviously God has gifted you to excel in the business world. So like you're living the best life you possibly can, and using every gift and ability he's given you. And when that goes well, there's financial, benefit that's attached to that. And so it's, I think it's so true, is that we embrace a very poverty type mindset. And I think it causes a lot of people to live really small in their dreams and in their ambitions. And I think it also causes people to really, go back to that deficit imagination of like, well, I couldn't, or I shouldn't. But then you get to the place where, well, what if I did? Then what kind of influence and what kind of impact could I possibly have on the people around me and the world around
100%.
me?
Yeah.
So now you take the supplement company, it grows, things go great. And then you get into, and I love this, and this is when we first kind of started getting connected, into this coffee company, which I love, because literally one of our common friends, Brendan Preston, he came one day and he said, listen, I got a buddy. He's like, I want you to try this coffee. And we tried the coffee, and I was like, this is the smoothest, bestest tasting coffee ever. And so we're trying to work everything out, because we want Lifeboost to be the official coffee of the Daron Earlewine podcast. So tell us the story of how you went from the supplement company to what's going on now, and with the coffee company.
Yeah. So with the supplement company, we had this small farm in Nicaragua. These guys somehow got a hold of our supplements and was taking it. And they're like, yeah, they contacted customer support and said, hey, we love your supplements. We want to put these in your coffee, or in our coffee. And I was like, that's a terrible idea. Do not do that. These are liver supplements. They're super bitter. It's not going to make your coffee taste good.
Yeah.
I say, but I enjoy coffee, so let me have some of your coffee. So they sent me some of the coffee, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's the best coffee I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
So I started doing research on it, and just realized there's a gap in the coffee market. Coffee is the third most consumed beverage in the world, right? Next to the first, obviously, is water.
Right.
Second is tea.
Okay.
And the third is coffee. I thought wine was going to be up there, but turns out it's number 10.
What's number 3? Three's coffee.
3 was coffee.
What's 4?
I have no idea. I stopped at 3. I was like, that's good enough for me.
Yeah, well, you knew that was 3. You're like, we're going this direction.
And being that high, since it is a plant, in order to mass produce something like that, it's a cash crop. So they're spraying it down with lots of pesticides. And so when you're making your coffee, you are concentrating those pesticides, and they are going into your cup. And most people drink coffee every single day, multiple cups. That bioaccumulates over time, and it can also, you've got some crazy toxins in there that can be detrimental to your health.
Wow.
So I wanted to create a healthy coffee company. So, I did my research, tested their coffee beans, you sent it off to a third-party lab, realized how clean they are. There's no mycotoxins, no heavy metals, molds, it's certified organic, it's super pure coffee. And I was like, okay, let me see what I can do with this.
Yeah.
So that was 2015. So I would play with it for a little bit. Started to create the business, just didn't do much with it. And then 2019, at this time I'm consulting for another company, helping them with marketing stuff. And he was drinking my coffee, and he's like, I absolutely love this. This coffee is incredible. I think that there's an opportunity here that we can just scale this to the moon.
Wow.
So I was like, all right. He's like, if I do this, will you give me a partnership in it? I said, yeah. He did it in 3 months.
Wow.
So I was like, all right.
Here we go.
All right. Here we go. So his personality type was very similar to my best friends in school. So I knew exactly how to work with that type of personality.
Yeah.
He was good at the front end. I was good at the back end. Back end being, front end is acquiring the customer. Back end is more taking care of the customer, getting them to buy more, giving them a great experience, making product development, those type of things.
Yeah.
So that's all the stuff that I'm really great at. And it's just a great pair, and we worked. And that year, so that was 2019. 2020, we ended up hitting the Inc. 500 or Inc. 5000. We were 271 on the Inc. 5000 that year, the fastest growing companies in the U.S.
Wow. And then you've had a kind of an awesome accomplishment here just recently. So tell us that.
So 2021, we hit number 80 on the Inc. 5000 for the fastest growing companies in the U.S.
Wow, Charles, that's phenomenal.
Both years, we were number 2 in Indiana, fastest growing companies. Yeah.
So you basically, opportunities come. God presents them. You courageously step into them, and it just seems like everything goes to the moon.
Yeah, I wish.
Well, and I know there's a lot of hard work behind it, but you have had success and things have grown. And earlier in our conversation, you said that when it was just practicing with chiropractic, you sensed that like maybe there was something more you were supposed to be a part of. Do you feel like you're in that right now?
I do. Yeah.
Talk about that.
So I guess like instead of affecting people one-on-one, like this gives me the ability to affect the masses, right? So the coffee company is based off of, we have 4 core values. It's clean, cause, connection, and kindness. Okay. Clean, eating and drinking clean 80% of the time because we're human. We love good food, right? So that's okay. But 80% of the time you need to watch what you put in your body, right? Yeah. Clean cause is, stand for something. And so we stand for sustainable farming, taking care of our environment, helping others. Like we send coffee to first responders and, hospitals and teachers and like all the people on the front lines. That's another thing that we do. Build schools in the towns where our farms are at. We do that as well. And then, so that's cause, connection. Coffee is something that connects us all, right? We were always going, I've been to the coffee shop, just for some meetings, like 3 or 4 times this week. Yeah. Because it's just a place where we can meet, sit down, have a cup of coffee and just talk business or friendship or, whatever. You do that with friends, you do it with family, you do it with business. So, and then kindness. That's kind of the ethos of the entire company is just treat people like you want to be treated. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And if you just do that, the world will be a better place.
This is true.
And so that's kind of what we preach. And if you see like the emails we send out, there's always stuff that talks about that. So we're always going back. Like that's what all of our stuff is about, is those 4 things.
So now that you're in this space now, you're seeing the growth of the coffee company, you've gone through the whole process. Well, what is it something that you feel like that kind of the overarching message maybe that God has taught you or maybe something that you feel like that God's teaching you right now in the space that you're in?
One, because with customer support, and this is something I tell my team all the time, like you get a lot of nasty, emails and stuff with things go wrong. Obviously, things go wrong with logistics and people don't get their coffee in time or its package is busted. And some people get super livid. Other people are not. So I'm just like, look, take care of the customer. If they get super duper angry and start cussing and doing stuff like that, it's because they themselves are unhappy in their life. And this is just an outlet for them. And they're just venting because they have something to vent to.
Yeah.
Chances are that they have an absolutely miserable life. Because that's typically what you see. As many times as we've done that, that's pretty much what has happened. People are just super unhappy for whatever reason.
Sure.
Relationships, financial, whatever. Right. They're just unhappy. And a lot of them, they don't have God in their life. So we get that too, because a lot of times since I'm a Christian, I'll put God bless or something like that. And then we'll get people to just say, I'm never drinking your coffee again because you said God bless, like crazy stuff like that. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I mean, I'm not going to, change that just because, but because then on the flip side, we also get a ton of messages of people saying, oh my gosh, thank you so much. God bless you too.
Right.
So it's just trying to be an example without coming across as judgmental and just loving on people. Right.
Yeah.
So that's what we try to do.
One of the things that's interesting is that you have an opportunity to help people even as you're on that customer service side of things with that, and you have been in so many businesses of being able to show, understanding and empathy, which is so much of the, being able to bring, how do you translate some of the character qualities of Christ into business in that ways, and those are amazing ways that you can do it. As we wrap up, Charles, maybe there's somebody that they're you back in the chiropractor days, and they're like, man, maybe I should just leave well enough alone. Like I've got this dream, I've got this risk I want to take, but man, I don't want to screw this up, or I'm afraid of failure, or whatever their reasoning is. And usually in any of that, it's wrapped in fear somehow.
Always.
What's a word of encouragement you would give them that if they're stuck there and they just sense that maybe God is nudging them towards taking a risk?
So number one, I would say start with the end in mind. Like you need to get clarity in your life. What is it that you like? What is it that you want in your life, right? So take the time to sit down and just write out like all the amazing things that you want out of life. If it's, to climb Mount Everest, or if it's to, have, even just a house on the beach, or, even if it's simply just to have a family, that white picket fence life, whatever it is, you need to write all that stuff out and then start from there and figure out how do you get there. And if the job that you're currently in is not going to take you there, then what will? And so then you need to spend time on that step, figuring out, okay, well, if I want to get to, if I want to get to a house on the beach, what is it going to take?
Yeah.
So what can I do to have a life of abundance where I can get that?
Yeah.
Right? So, and there's many paths. I mean, that's a one crazy thing about working, in business in general, and even online business, which is what I kind of consider myself doing, is there's so many paths to achieve your goals. Yeah. So many different paths. I know people from all types of lifestyles who've come from nothing, who've made, something like way more money than you could even imagine.
Yeah.
But it's just, they took the risk, and they were also very clear on their intentions.
Yeah.
Right. So write out what you want and spend the time, thinking on it every single day. Like, what is it? And just get clarity. Clarity doesn't come in one setting. It comes over time. Like I'm still getting clear on, working on that path. I know what I want, but I'm still getting even more clear on it.
Yeah.
Right. And then just figuring out if what I'm doing is going to be able to take me there.
Yeah. Well, I just think, that clarity could bring you to a place where you make it clear on that and you realize, no, actually, like the job, that the life that I want and the life that I feel like God's leading me to live, like maybe I need to stay where I'm at. It's going to lead you to understand both sides of the equation and which decision you make. Yeah. Because I've seen a lot of people that have chased after a promotion or a new job or something thinking that's the kind of life I want. And they get there and they realize, no, like this is not the kind of life that I wanted. The society told me this is what I needed or whatever, but that's not what I wanted. And if they had taken the time to get clear on really what was their true values, that they wouldn't have made it. So that's beautiful advice. Charles, I know, like I said, we're trying to get the whole process set up because we want to be able to have Life Boost as a part of the podcast and to the audience. But if someone wants to get in contact with you, get in contact with the business, what's the way they can stay connected, whether it's through Life Boost Coffee or whatever? What's the best way to stay in kind of your orbit?
Oh man. Well, we have a Facebook group called Life Boost Insperience. So I imagine if you type in Life Boost, you'll find it. It's just Insperience instead of experience, since you're at home drinking coffee. It's not really an experience, it's an insperience,
okay.
right?
Yep.
So that's the name of the group. You could, that's one of the best ways, go there. It's a protected group, so you have to answer some questions to get in. It's just to keep like a bunch of spammers and things like that out,
Yeah, sure.
right?
Yep.
And then the other way is just if you want to just email support@lifeboostcoffee.com, we'll give, just let them know that you heard me on a podcast, and they'll give you like 50% off your first order or something.
That's amazing. Awesome. Good stuff. Dr. Charles Livingston, he is the entrepreneur extraordinaire. I love the journey. I love the adventure of it, and I love your guys' coffee. So thanks for taking the time to take us through the journey today, Charles.
Absolutely, Daron. Appreciate you having me.
Good stuff.
All right, man.
And we're back. And I'm just coming back from this dream sequence, and I'm still thinking about Life Boost Coffee. I'm sad I don't have a cup right now. I don't have any cup. I have no beverage in front of me today. Just really, I'm falling off is what's happening. I'm not focused. I'm not hydrating the way I should, and I apologize. Hey, Charles Livingston, what a story, right? I mean, how many times in your story are you like, I did this, and then before you knew it, it was a $10 million whatevs? Let me tell you how many times I've told that story in my life. Zero $10 million stories, but it's not about the money, okay? It isn't. This episode is not go make a bunch of money. If you can, awesome. I know a lot of people running nonprofits that could use a lot of money, right? I know that a lot of things in life that could use a lot of money. It's not an issue it's not the money is not the issue. And I know that Charles will say the same thing. It's not about that. It's about stepping in to become who God's created you to be. It's about the difference that you can make in the world. And I love when Charles talks about that draw that he felt like his life was to be more, that drive for significance. And I remember just graduating from college and having that sense, and maybe I've told you guys this story before, I can't remember, I'm going to tell you it again, is I was with one of my mentors, Ross DeMerchant, and I said, Ross, I don't know if this sounds weird, but I was like, I've always felt like I'm supposed to be famous in life. And he kind of laughed and he said, okay. He's like, well, tell me more about that. What is that about? And we just kind of started talking about it. And he said, Daron, he said, I understand what you're saying. And he's like, here's what I want you to realize is that there is a God-given drive within all of us to live for a sense of significance. And there's nothing wrong with that. Now, when it gets into just a selfish desire to be famous, now you're getting into a situation where the question you got to ask there is why do you want to be famous? Right? Like what's behind that? Now, a drive that you feel deep within yourself that I want to do something in this life that is significant. I believe that is a part of the actual image of God being developed in you, that we've been called by God within his a covenant relationship to belong. That's a deep longing for us, but also to become and to have significance within his kingdom. There's two parts of it, right? There's this covenant relationship, and then there's this kingdom opportunity and responsibility we've been given. And when you sense that, I want to encourage you to lean into it. Don't move away or shame yourself for the fact that you want to be a part of something bigger than yourself and you want to accomplish something significant in life. That's put there by God. The question is, to ask the question about the question is, why do I want that? And if it's to serve yourself, then that's not from the Lord. If it's to serve and make a difference in the lives of others, keep chasing that down. That's going to go in a beautiful direction. And one thing that can help us with that is the concept of humility. I want to bring that out real quick. We talked about it in that episode, is the fact that Charles walks away from a very prestigious job to go do customer service for his buddy's company. It's like a downgrade. But here's what I loved about that Charles said here, is there's an element, we've talked about this too on the podcast, right? The pain of discipline versus the pain of regret. Choosing to humble himself and take that job from his friend, to move away from the position, the power, the authority that was a part of his own, practice. He had to choose humility to do that. And then he had to choose the pain of discipline to show up and do the things that may have felt below him, and to learn an element of things that he didn't know, to grow in that area. And I think what's interesting is he talks about, and I think this is so key, is so often what can actually give us the fuel we need to choose the pain of discipline is our vision for the future of where this discipline is taking us. And there's purpose in that. And I think if you're at a place where you're trying to drum up the willpower to just be disciplined, and you don't think, and like as Charles talked about, begin with the end in mind and think about, I'm choosing this pain of discipline because here is my vision from where I'm going. It's a very biblical thought. When we're told, right, that we're going to actually need to endure trials and hardship with joy, right, we're told to fix our attention, fix our gaze on Christ, right, who for the joy set before him endured the cross and fulfilled the mission that God gave him. Jesus had the end in mind, and so he was able to humble himself. He was able to choose the discipline he needed to go forward because he had a vision for where it was taking him. And that's what I want to challenge you with. Have you taken the time to really get a vision for where you think God is leading your life? For where you want to go, for who you want to become. Because if it's nebulous, if it's out there, if it's ethereal, if it's like just something out there, you're probably not going to choose the humility you need to. You're probably not going to choose the perseverance you need to. You're probably not going to choose the pain of discipline you need to make it through what is ahead of you because you don't have a clear focus on where you're going. Ask God to give you a clear vision of where your life is going so you can make those choices. Last thing is this, and we'll end with this, is the scarcity abundance balance and perspective that Charles brought, I think is worth its weight in gold. I think so many Christians believe that there's a scarcity of opportunity. I think, actually, it's not even a Christian thing. I think most people believe that all opportunity and anything good in this world is scarce, and I do not believe that's the case. We believe things are scarce, therefore we become selfish. We believe things are scarce, therefore we allow fear to control so much of our life. Because if I don't take this opportunity, if I don't grab this, if I don't hoard this for myself, there's not going to be enough. You're going to take it from me, and there's not going to be enough. That's just not the case. If you look at the way Jesus taught in the New Testament, he talks about, hey, listen, look at the lilies, right? Look at the sparrows. Look at these things. I care for these things, and I know I care for them, and I care for you. I know what you need before you even ask it, and I'll take care of your needs. When you hear Jesus talk about his connection to the Father, when you look at that, you realize that Jesus didn't operate with a scarcity mentality. He allowed this understanding that God knew what he needed. He had his best interest at heart, and he owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, right? As Bono would say, the God I serve is not short on cash, mister, right? He has the resources. There's an abundance of opportunity because God is for you, not against you. He's near you, not far from you. And he's created you on purpose and for a purpose. So as you're looking in this next season of life, as you're looking at the opportunities, as you're looking at the resources that you need to move forward into this vision that maybe God's given you, are you operating from a place of believing that life and opportunity and resources are scarce or abundant? I want to encourage you to get used to the reality that they are abundant. Because if you can expand your understanding to realize how abundant the blessings and the providence and the power of God are, you'll take greater steps of risk, greater leaps of faith, and with greater risk, there's greater reward. Now, could there be greater failure? Yeah, there could be, but guess what? There's an abundance of grace and restoration that comes from the Lord as well. And when you can expand your life to understand the abundance that is in God, you set yourself up to be a person that can actually responsibly handle the abundant blessing of God. Because when he gives you an abundance, you don't hoard it thinking that it's scarce. You realize that it's been abundantly given so it can be abundantly given. One of the first principles God taught the Israelite people in the New Testament. I'm choosing you, and there is going to be an abundance of blessing so you can be a blessing, a light to the nations. That's the setup from start to finish. Blessed to be a blessing, abundance to be a giver, and a conduit of abundance. Don't let scarcity keep you from taking this next risk. Choose the humility, the pain, and discipline. Trust the abundance and go after it. Who knows? You might just create the next Life Boost coffee. Good stuff. Hope Hope you're inspired. Hope you're ready to go for another week here. Thanks for hanging out with us today on the Daron Earlewine podcast. We'll be back next week. And then we got some new stuff coming down the pike for you guys in the fall. I can't tell you about it. It's brand new. And change some things up. Give you a little something new. I think it's going to be great. I think you're going to like it. Same vein of content, but we're going to shake it up a little bit. Everybody likes things that are new, right? New, improved, improving. That's how we get momentum, baby. Coming your way. Have a great week. Love to hear from you. Email me, Darren@blackbirdmission.com. Text me, 317-550-5070, or reach out to any of the socials. If you'd like a free resource, maybe a jump start to purpose, you can go to IamBornToBe.com, and we'll send you the 5-day jump start to purpose, 5 quick daily devotionals, audio devotionals that can help you jumpstart your journey towards purpose. Go check it out right now. IamBornToBe.com. We'll send you that today. God bless you. Love you. Remember these 3 things. God's for you, not against you. He is near you, not far away, and He's created you on purpose and for a purpose. Talk to you next week right here on the Daron Earlewine podcast.